probably one of the world's biggest story, has been about Donald Sterling and the racist remarks that he made that was put on tape and released to the public. It's created a lot of conversation and dialogue, especially about how the NBA might handle this. Royalyn Reid is a diversity and sensitivity expert for 1320 WILS and Fox News Radio. She teaches tolerance at companies from coast to coast. Royalyn, how are you?
Hey, Tony, just fine.
All right, we have an owner who has a history of being a bigot and a racist. He's been sued. He's had a lot of challenges. And the latest adventure of Donald Sterling, including his ex-girlfriend, putting on a conversation in which he made a lot of disparaging remarks. When you first heard about this, when you first heard the remarks, Royalyn, what did you think?
Well, Tony, I thought it was just interesting how it went. But, the most important thing is when you look at it is, of course, with history in the past we've heard, what's really happened in the scheme of things is, unfortunately, he affected his business. And when you think about diversity training, which a lot of times when you go into a business, diversity is about how do you bring together differences, but also you find common goals and causes. In a business, everybody's together about to move a business forward to make money. Sterling affected all of that. He affected his team, he affected his fellow owners, and he affected the league. And that's when it really becomes a real big issue. He affected the fans. Even though everyone kind of knows it, it's brought up to the issue. Because look at us now. Everyone is spending time talking about Donald Sterling versus the team and the playoffs.
Royalyn, when you see behavior like this from an individual who's, he's past 80 now, can that way of thinking and behavior be changed?
Well, a lot of times, too, Tony, what we see, that's a personal decision. Even with training, when you bring awareness to the table, whether it's something like this, when you choose to listen or whatever you choose to do, that's going to be an individual decision that a person has to make. Now, we hope everyone chooses to move forward with that. But I think what's so important that now healing can start with the team and the franchise and the fans is that there is a swift ruling like we hope you make a choice, but what you're going to do in your position that affects everyone will not be tolerated.
Royalyn,
that's what's important.
Is there trickle-down behavior when the leaders at the top think this way?
Well, we know for sure, the leadership definitely makes a difference because the leadership sets the culture, overall. Now, of course, you can kind of buffer that here and there, but it truly affects the culture. Whereas the owner or executives or managers of a department. So definitely. The thing is, even if he doesn't change, and if we know that even in our own workplace, something happens to the manager or the executive that they are reprimanded, that we see something can happen, that makes a difference to us. I think what was really good in how the league handled it is, first of all, they said we're going to investigate. They didn't jump in the same day for like a quote-unquote knee-jerk reaction. They said we're going to look at the facts, contrary to how things were handled with Paula Bean. But yet it was quick, and everyone wanted something swift, a swift ruling. So we've seen that. We looked at the facts. We've talked to different those that are involved. Swift ruling. Now let's move forward with the healing in terms of what we're going to do.
All right, so Donald Sterling has been slapped with a permanent ban and a $2.5 million fine, and the NBA is going to move hard to get Sterling to sell his franchise. How does the healing start? If you were a part of this situation, what happens next?
And then, of course, with the different areas, even with the team now, something is happening now, but then you have to begin to look at it. I thought you brought up a really good point, too. Tony, like you said, this isn't new. It's been going on. So it's a prime time to come in and say, okay, we know all this has been going on. So with where we are today, what can we do to look at ourselves? How can we get stronger as our team? How can we move on, be stronger as a franchise? To use this as a springboard, because everyone is sort of pliable now in a different way. It's not business as usual. And that's where you can really get in there and bring about change when something happens like
Royalyn, this is mind-blowing for someone like me. I am mixed race, and so when I see behavior like this, especially to someone who was dating a mixed race person, it almost makes you look around, and wonder if the same thing's going on around you.
Absolutely. See, Tony, you're saying we're all heightened right now. And that's something that everybody should look at themselves. Like you said, look at how I feel in my situation. How is that affecting my surroundings? Everyone can do that. And see what can we do to make it better in terms of diversity or tolerance. And even not only in the race, but how am I in other areas? Some people in the workforce say, well, that's true about this, but what about women? Well, or, if we're the cheerleaders, or, well, this is true how I look at race, but how do I respond to other groups that may be different from myself?
Thanks, Royalyn.